Hey everybody, it's Jorik. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel. I greatly appreciate it. I hope the videos are useful and helpful to you. If you just found me, it may be because you're searching for things about Portugal or Europe travel news. I like to talk about moving to and living in Portugal, as well as updating on the latest strikes and airport delays, things like that happen in Europe. Today's video is a little bit different. It's sort of travel related and Europe related, but it involves some strange or unique or interesting driving laws that you probably are not going to be aware of if you're looking to rent a car in Europe. Now, these are things I will say that in renting in many of these countries, did not find out at the rental car counter, so it's not something that we were aware of. And unless you actually read some blogs or have lived in the country or have a driver's license in the country, you wouldn't know about any of this stuff. So for example, we do not have our Portuguese driver's license yet. So there may be a couple of these laws that you'll see that pertain to Portugal that we might already be aware of if we had our driver's license. But since we rent our car with our US driver's license, we didn't know about it. But the same thing goes for Germany, France, Italy. We've driven in a number of countries, and I wanted to make sure that you knew some of the relative laws that you may not know when you go to the rental car counter, but also some of the stranger, the ones that make you scratch your head a little bit, that are in Europe. So let's start with the first one. Second pair of glasses. Portugal, Spain, France, and Switzerland. If you have prescription glasses or contacts, meaning you use them for your photograph, for your driver's license identification, you do need to have a second pair handy in your backpack, in the glove box someplace. So if you happen to get pulled over in one of these countries and they take your driver's license and you're wearing your glasses, they may often ask for a second pair, or if you have contacts, do you have a spare pair somewhere in the vehicle? Now, you could get fined if you don't have them. From my understanding, 90% of the time you get away with a warning if you do not have a second pair, but it is something that just doesn't come up at the rental car facility because we've driven in a few of these countries when we live in Portugal, didn't know that existed. So second, in Greece, if you are a smoker, there is no smoking while driving. So if you are the driver in the vehicle, you are not allowed to smoke. So you have to wait for a rest stop, or before you drive and afterwards, if you are going to be able to smoke while you're driving. In Switzerland, this is a strange one. You can't wash your car on Sundays. Now, many of you that are using rental cars are going to say, well, we're not going to do that anyway, but I thought I'd just throw in every once in a while here some unique driving laws or interesting laws pertaining to automobiles. So no car washing on Sundays if you're in Switzerland. Now in Spain, many of you go to Spain because there's so many destinations. There's Madrid, there's Barcelona. To the north, there's Bilbao. To the south, there's Malaga and Ronda. Parking in Spain. This is where things get very interesting. So in some cities, although they don't necessarily have a map of those some cities, parking changes every day. On some one-way streets in those cities, you park where there's uneven addresses on uneven days, and then in those same cities, you park along even addresses for even days. So that's something that's a little bit unique, and you normally don't come across that anywhere else, but that is something that is done in Spain. Something that you will experience when you're driving around Europe and some parts of, let's say, North America, but it's more Europe. There will be roundabouts or travel circles. They may be called by several different names. I know them as roundabouts. And something to be aware of, if you are in Germany, when it comes to the right of way, meaning who has the right, whether you're in the traffic circle, or you're coming into it, meaning you're stopped and you're waiting to come in. In Germany, inside the travel circle is the right of way. The people that are in there have the right to exit, and then you have to wait to get into it unless there's signage. If there's signage in Germany, then it's the opposite. The people coming into the roundabout have the right of way, and if you're in the roundabout, you have to slow down or wait for that. France, similar. If there's no sign, then entering the roundabout is the right of way. If there is signage, then inside the roundabout has the right of way. So it's almost the opposite of Germany and how they treat the roundabouts. In the Netherlands, well, we've heard from a couple of locals, you need to be a local to understand because it can be all over the map. In some cases, it can be inside the travel circle roundabout. Sometimes it's as you're entering it. You may enter in the same town. You may have different rules depending on the roundabout. So if you're in the Netherlands and driving a rental car and you're dealing with roundabouts, I don't have great information for you. Just make sure to research it, understand the laws before you get a rental car there, and maybe ask at the rental car facility if they can give you the rules of the road. Next up is Slovenia. So if you happen to be going to Slovenia for a trip and using a rental car, you have to use hazard lights every time you put the car in reverse. So probably not a bad thing. So for example, there's a lot of parallel parking and street parking here in Europe. So making sure that someone that's coming towards you knows that you're backing up, just extra signals, so not a bad thing. But it's rare that you have to do this. Usually you put on your hazards when you're parked and you have a situation where your car is not running or not functioning properly. In Slovenia, it's every time you go in reverse. Next up, we have France. So France says that you must have a breathalyzer in the car. And in my mind, I envision people that get in trouble with the law in the US and they actually have something installed in their vehicle, which is probably more like what this photograph is about. But you can buy, I guess, these little portable ones that you're supposed to have if you're driving. Now, again, if you don't get pulled over, no one's going to ask. But if you happen to get pulled over, then it is something that you need to make sure that you have. I will say the fine for it, from what I'm reading here, is anywhere from 13 to 15 euros if you happen to get pulled over and you don't have one. I will say we've used a rental car a couple of times in France. They did not come with them at the rental car facility. I didn't know about this law until I was researching this for this video. So just to be aware. Next up, Italy, having an international driving permit. So I will say this, if we had an EU license, if we had our Portuguese license, we would not need any other license or any other permit to drive in Italy because Italy recognizes that. But, for example, from the US, since we still have our US license, or if you're traveling from the US, Canada, abroad, they will not ask you at the time that you get your rental car, which is weird. They won't ask you for an international permit. But if you get pulled over for any reason, if it's speeding, there's an accident, some situation, it is required that you have an international driving permit. Even if you have your driver's license with you, Italy requires this extra permit. We received ours. We went back home recently to the United States and went to AAA. We were able to secure one there. So we have that along with our driver's license. And as we are going to be driving in Italy this year, we wanted to make sure we had one that was updated. They usually last for a 12-month or 1-year period. It's really if you get pulled over or if there's an accident, something involving the vehicle and you, and the police look for it, they're more likely, it's my understanding, that they will fine you for not having that permit. So it's not so much a warning, it is a fine if you don't have that. Next up is Cyprus. So I don't know if many people are going to be making it to Cyprus, but I wanted to let you know it's a little unique here. There's no eating or drinking if you're driving, and that includes water and soda. So it's not like it's just designed for, having McDonald's and while you're drinking a beer or a cocktail. That's not it. You're not allowed to do any drinking or any eating of any type while you are driving in Cyprus. Next up, headphones. This is a big deal because many people use earbuds or you have like a Bluetooth phone in their ear, so that way they can do hands-free calling and the like. And there are several places around the world that prefer you to be hands-free, so they're okay with headphones in lieu of making sure that you are using hand-free devices. Well, in Spain and in France, they do not allow earphones, any Bluetooth devices, anything like that. So you are not able to have those in your ears while you're driving in Spain or France. So many people go there for vacations. Just want to make sure that you have this information. So if you happen to be pulled over and the police say something, there are no issues involved and you don't get fined for having those or wearing those. Next up, in Belgium, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, those 4 countries, it's required to have a fire extinguisher in the car, and not in the trunk, in the actual car. Often it will be either in between the driver and passenger seat in front, kind of where there usually is a compartment to put some trinkets and items, or it will be just tucked underneath the front or back of the driver's seat or the front passenger seat, so that it's out of the way. But if somebody's seated behind you in the back seat, they have the fire extinguisher there. So just to make sure, if you have a rental car in any of those countries, it's going to have the extinguisher in there. I will say, if you're happening to travel there and you go to your rental car and it doesn't have one, make sure you go back to the agency so that they have one in there for you, so you're in compliance before you leave the rental car agency. The last one is a little bit of a long one. I'm going to show you what different countries do, but children in cars, the rules are all over the place in Europe. Generally speaking, kids below the age of, let's say, 12 to 10, kids below and or some combination of weight, they can't sit in the front seat. So as you see this, I'm going to scroll through and show you most of the countries and what their requirements are, because if you have kids, let's say under the age of 10, often they're going to need to be in the back seat, unless there is no back seat. If it's a 2-seat car, then the kids are going to have to be in front. But you can see here as I'm going through these, and you can even stop the video so that you can look and screenshot this if you're going to one of these countries, but you can see what the age requirement is to be able to sit in the front seat, what the weight requirement or height requirement is to be in the front seat. And it is, as you can see from these several different slides, it's all over the place. So as you're traveling with your family or your child or children, just be aware that these are the different laws that you're going to come in contact with as you're driving throughout Europe. So I want to make sure that you're prepared as you have your upcoming trip, or whenever you may be planning, if you're using a car, know kind of the laws of the road and things that you'll be dealing with that may be different than how you deal with driving and some of the laws in your home country. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch the channel, and enjoy your travels.